sticks his finger in mine and pops it all over my. But Willson, I always. Do you know why? He thinks. The day I learned how to fly, I was worried about Willson Schlam. I spend a lot of time worrying about Willson. I've always had trouble with that guy. Do you know why? He thinks he's better than me, and I know he isn't. I'm Jack Johnson, and I'm not the kind of kid who likes to enter contests. Really, I don't like to compete. I always let my dad win at chess. Just because it means so much to him to win. And I even let my dog Morty win our wrestling matches on the living room floor. But Willson never gives me a break. He always has to prove that he's the best at everything. If I'm chewing bubble gum, he tries to blow bigger bubbles. When my bubble is twice as big as Wilson's, he says that his is rounder. If my bubble is bigger and rounder, he sticks his finger in mine and pops it all over my face. He's trouble, that guy. Real trouble, especially when Mia Montez is around. Mia is the cutest girl at Malibu Middle School. Ask anybody. Everything about Mia is cute. She has big green eyes and a perfect, little nose. I think Mia's nose is the first thing I noticed about her. I really admired that nose. I guess that's because my nose is kind of big. And Mia has the prettiest hair. Short, straight black hair. Really shiny. My hair is dark, like Mia's, but it's curly. Way too curly. Know what Mia is totally crazy about? Hearts. It sort of makes sense. She was born on Valentine's Day. She wears a heart necklace every day to school. And a charm bracelet with lots of silver and gold hearts dangling from it. On her right hand, she wears a ruby red heart ring. And she has earrings that match. She looks so cute in all those hearts. Anyway, when Mia is around, that's when Willson is at his worst. He has to show off in front of her. And he has to prove that he's better than me. Willson likes to compete. Willson likes to win. So what choice do I have? I have to show Willson that he's wrong. I have to prove that I'm as good as he is. I don't want Mia to think I'm a loser. Jack, can I borrow your eraser? My friend Ethan Polk tapped me on the shoulder. Ethan sits behind me during free period in school. He never has erasers. He's always losing them. Sure. I turned around and handed him the new one I bought yesterday. Because he lost my old one the day before. I hardly use my eraser anyway. At least not when I'm drawing superheroes. I love to draw superheroes. And I'm really good at it. I never have to fix a single line. Hey, that's awesome. Ethan pointed over my shoulder to my sketch of the Incredible Laser Man. The Incredible Laser Man is my newest superhero. I draw superheroes every day. In the morning before I go to school. During free period. And at night after I finish my homework. And then, when I go to bed, I dream about them. One day I'm going to be a comic book artist. I have a folder at home packed with my superhero drawings. The Fearless Falcon, Shadow Boy, the Masked Mantis. They're all going to be famous one day. I know it. I studied my sketch of the Incredible Laser Man. He wore a really cool jumpsuit. His huge muscles bulged against the tight material. A powerful lightning bolt streaked across his massive chest. 2 more lightning bolts zigzagged down his muscular legs. I drew a pair of mysterious black goggles to hide his eyes, so no one would know his true identity. I didn't know it either, yet. First I draw the character, then I make up the story. The Incredible Laser Man held his mighty arms up to the sky. I started to draw laser beams shooting from his fingertips. The bell rang just as I finished. I jumped up from my seat. I couldn't wait to show the Incredible Laser Man to Mia. She was going to love it. Hey, Mia. I held my drawing out to her. Want to see my, out of my way, Jackie? I turned and saw Willson. He was carrying a drawing too. He shoved me hard from behind. I fell over Mia's desk. My drawing flew from my hand and fluttered to the floor. Thank you, Willson. Mia held Wilson's drawing in her hand. She flashed him a big smile. Look at this, Jack. Look what Willson drew. I glanced over Mia's shoulder. Willson had drawn a team of superheroes. 5 of them. Colored in. In sparkly letters at the top he had written, Mia's Protectors. Yuck. Look what Jackie drew. Willson cried. He snatched my drawing from the floor. Willson, don't call me Jackie. I declared. I told you a million times, I really hate being called that. Sorry. I forgot. Willson smirked. I won't do it again, Jackie. I glared at Willson. Give me back my draw. Ing. I snapped. I reached out for it. But Willson was too fast for me. He shoved it in front of Mia's face. It's the Incredible Lazy Man, he hooted. Mia giggled at his dumb joke. I wanted to disappear. It's very cute, Jack, Mia said, handing it back to me. Then she and Willson slipped on their backpacks and headed outside. Okay, so Mia liked Wilson's drawing better. No big deal, I told myself. I stuffed my drawing into my backpack. Just wait until we get outside. Just wait until Mia sees my new 21-speed Silver Streak racing bike. She's going to love it. I ran outside, just in time to see Mia circling my new bike. Cool, she said, trying to catch her reflection in the handlebars. Maybe I'll ask Mom and Dad for a bike like this for my birthday. I knew Mia would be impressed. You don't want that for your birthday, Willson snickered. You want Thizzle, Willson pointed to his new bike. His new heavy-duty dirt bike. Oh, wow, Mia exclaimed. Wow, my stomach twisted into a knot. I don't like those skinny racing bikes, Willson sneered, shaking his head at my bike. Too flimsy. I like a real bike. I was so steamed. I wanted to take his big dirt bike and ride it back and forth over Wilson's head. My new bike was awesome. It wasn't flimsy at all. Why did everything have to be a contest? And why did Willson always win? Little did I know as the three of us rode home that the contest was only beginning. I win, Willson shouted, jumping off his bike. He leaned it against the tree in front of my house. He pumped his fists in the air. The silver snail comes in second, he announced as I rode up, drenched in sweat. Great race, guys, Mia said, pedaling up to us. I wanted to ride home from school next to Mia. But Willson wanted to race, and Mia thought it was a cool idea. The hills of Malibu are awesome for racing. They wind around and around. I love to climb those hills on my bike, then go speeding down. And I'm really great at taking some of the sharp turns. I gripped the handlebars of my bike. I was confident. I had 21 speeds. We raced. Willson won. I leaned my bike next to Wilson's, trying to catch my breath. Morty, my rust-colored cocker spaniel, trotted out from the backyard to greet us. Hey, Morty. The hearts on Mia's bracelet clinked softly as she scratched Morty's neck. Morty likes Mia as much as I do. His tail wagged like crazy. He jumped up to lick her face. Then he started on me. Whoa, here comes Wilson's dog. Mia pointed across the street to Wilson's house. Wilson's enormous Labrador charged full speed toward us. Down, boy. Willson laughed as his dog leapt up on him. He nearly knocked Willson over. Terminator is twice as big as Morty, Willson bragged to Mia. But Morty is smarter, I boasted. We taught Morty to carry his food dish to the sink when he's finished eating. That's pretty smart, Mia agreed. You call that smart? Willson sneered. We taught Terminator to answer the phone when we're not home. That's definitely smarter, Mia said. That is really, really smart. That's not so smart, I argued. Morty can roll over and, oh, no. We all heard a cry. Mrs. Green, my next door neighbor, poked her head out of her front door and screamed. She stared in horror at the tree across the street. The tree in front of Wilson's house. There was Olive, Mrs. Green's new kitten, sitting on the edge of a high tree limb. Her fur stood on end. Her little body shook. She let out a soft whimper. Oh, poor Olive, Mia cried. She's going to fall. Someone has to save her. I will. Willson and I shouted together. Oh, no, you won't, Willson. I thought. You're not going to win this time. With a burst of speed, I raced across the street. My sneakers pounded the sidewalk. I reached the tree first. Give me a boost, I ordered Willson. Before he could argue, I wrapped my arms around the tree trunk and raised my foot. Wilson gave me a boost. I inched my way up the trunk. I gazed out, over the hilltops. My eyes followed their winding path down, down, down. Right down to the beach. The beach stretched along the coast for miles. I glanced down and smiled at Mia. Hurry, Jack, she cried nervously. Don't worry, Mia, I declared. I'm on my way. Yes, I am on my way to save Olive. And you're not, Willson. I climbed higher and higher, until I reached the limb where Olive sat. Her whole body shivered with fright. She let out a terrified squeak when she spotted me. I studied the tree limb. It was very slender. I didn't know if it would hold my weight. What are you waiting for, Jackie? Willson shook the tree trunk. Foo, come up and get her if you're afraid. Ha, no way, Willson. I crawled out on the limb. Very slowly. Olive whimpered. I stopped. I crawled out some more. Olive inched away from me. I stopped again. Olive stared into my eyes. Then she lifted her front paws, to jump. Down below, I could hear Mrs. Green and Mia gasp. No, Olive, I begged softly. Stay. I moved a little closer, close enough to grab her now. I slowly reached out to her. My fingertips brushed against her soft fur. Then my knee slipped off the branch. I lost my balance. I lurched to the left. No. I let out a shrill cry as I dropped from the tree. I shot my arms up. I groped frantically for the tree limb. And missed. My stomach flopped as I plunged down. Down. I closed my eyes tight, ready to smack down on the hard ground. Something soft broke my fall. Gotcha, Jackie. Willson caught me in his arms. He held me like a baby. Great. Just great. ... I heard clapping. Mia clapping. Then Willson dropped me on the pavement. Oh www. My head hit the cement with a thud. Are you okay? Mia's voice sounded far away. Yes, I started to answer, struggling to sit up. That's when I saw that Mia wasn't paying any attention to me. She was bent over Willson, studying a swollen finger he held out to her. I'm okay, Willson assured her. Jack doesn't weigh much. No, Mrs. Green shrieked. Olive. No. Olive dangled from the tree limb by one little paw. Willson scrambled up the tree and crawled across the limb. The tree groaned and creaked under his stocky legs. But Willson didn't care. He looked so sure of himself as he crossed the sagging branch. He scooped up Olive in one hand. Then he shimmied down the tree trunk. Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Green threw her arms around Wilson's wide shoulders and hugged him. My narrow shoulders drooped. I felt miserable. With Olive cradled safely in her arms, Mrs. Green returned to her house. I watched her walk across our lawn. My gaze shifted to my yard, where Morty and Terminator wrestled in the grass. Terminator batted Morty with his huge paw. He sent Morty into orbit over the hedges. Terminator charged across the lawn, jumped over the shrubs, and reached Morty before my poor dog landed. Terminator knocked him out of the air and pounced on him. Morty yelped helplessly as Terminator pinned him to the ground. Terminator, stop, I shouted, heading over to them. Leave them alone. They're just playing, Willson called, but I trudged across the lawn to rescue Morty. Even Wilson's dog wins all the time, I grumbled. Morty and I are losers. Total losers. Hey, guys, FBE got to go home. Mia jumped on her bike. Don't forget about my birthday. Party on Saturday. Foo be there, Willson told her. And FM going to bring Terminator. He has a surprise for you. I groaned. Are you coming to my party, Jack? Mia smiled brightly at me. Well, maybe. I tried to come up with a fast excuse. I hate parties. Don't get me wrong. I like to see my friends, but not at parties. I never really have fun at them, especially if there are party games. I hate to play party games. Especially if Willson is there. I may have to go somewhere with my parents, I lied. I think I promised FD go with them. And then I promised my dad FD help clean out the basement. You did that last week, Willson declared. Remember, I had to help you drag out the trash. It was too heavy for you. Well, we didn't finish, I said, thinking quickly. I'm such a terrible liar. Mia grasped the gold heart around her neck. You have to come, Jack. The party doesn't start till 6. I really want you to come. Well, I'll try, I told her. Great, Jack. See you. Mia hopped on her bike and pedaled up the hill toward her house. Should I go? I asked myself, heading up my driveway. Mia said she really wants me to come. So should I forget how much I hate parties, and go? Yes, I decided. Yes. Maybe I'll actually have fun. Yes. So, on Saturday night, I went to Mia's party. And wouldn't you know it, it ruined my life forever. Mia's house is 2 blocks up the hill from mine. Her house juts out on stilts. It's kind of dangerous, especially when we have mudslides. But she has an amazing view of the ocean down below. I stepped up to Mia's front door. I felt really nervous. For one thing, I'd never met Mia's new stepmother. Mia spends half the year with her real mother in Brentwood, and the other half here in Malibu with her dad and new stepmother. Come on in. It's so nice to meet you. I'm Angela Montez, Mia's stepmother greeted me at the door. Everyone's been waiting for you. Really? I asked. For Mev, really? Mrs. Montez exclaimed. Mia's stepmom had the most beautiful smile. I liked her right away. I followed her to the rec room doorway. She waved to Mia across the room. Mia, look who's finally here, she called. Willson. Angela, that's not Willson. That's Jack. Mia called back. Oh, sorry, Jack. Mrs. Montez patted me on the shoulder. Well, have a nice time anyway. Mia grabbed my arm and tugged me forward. The room was jammed with kids. We pushed our way through the crowd. Red streamers hung from the ceiling. Red is Mia's favorite color. I spotted my friends Ray and Ethan in the crowd. They were opening plastic bags filled with red balloons. Hey, Jack, help us blow these things up, Ray called. Okay, be right there. I liked Ethan and Ray. They were great guys, fun to hang out with. I handed Mia her birthday present. I wanted to give her something she would really, really like. I had walked around the mall for hours searching for just the right thing. Thanks, Jack. I can't wait to open it, Mia said, gazing at the red stars on the wrapping paper. Look, the paper matches my outfit. Mia pointed to the red stars on her white t-shirt and leggings. Mia liked the wrapping paper. That made me feel pretty good. Ray and Ethan tossed over some balloons, the long kind, and we started blowing them up. After we blew up about 50 of them, we batted them through the air. One after another. Real fast. A storm of red balloons whirled over our heads. The kids went wild, leaping up, batting them back. Over here, Jack, they screamed. Hit some over here. It was cool. Then Willson walked in. Hey, everyone, watch this. He snatched 2 balloons in flight. He twisted them so fast, his hands moved in a blur. Ta-da! He held his creation over his head for everyone to see. It was the figure of a man, with huge ears, stubby legs, and a fat belly. It looked exactly like our gym teacher, Mr. Grossman. Hey, it's the gross man, one of the kids yelled out. Everyone laughed. Awesome, Willson. Mia's friend Kara shouted. Isn't Willson a riot? Mia said to me. He can do anything. Yeah, I said, slinking back into the corner of the room. He's a real riot. Make something else. Mia clapped. Willson grabbed some balloons and made a pig with antlers. And a tiny elephant with a 4-foot trunk. And an enormous chicken. Everyone went crazy over that chicken. I was almost glad when Mia announced it was time to play Twister. Almost. I hate Twister. I told you, I hate all party games. Everyone cleared the center of the room so Mia could set the game out. I shrank farther back into my corner. I eased myself down to the floor. I did it slowly so no one would notice me. Jackie, Willson dove over the playing mat and yanked me up. It's time to see if you can beat the champ. Willson is great at Twister. Of course. Willson, I don't really feel like playing. I wrestled free of his grip. I'll spin the spinner so everyone else can play. Not necessary, Jack. Wilson's mouth spread into the widest grin I'd ever seen. I knew that grin meant trouble. He placed his fingers in his mouth and let out a shrill whistle. Terminator bounded into the room. Spin, boy, Willson ordered the dog. Terminator trotted over to the spinner on the floor. He gave it a hard nudge with his nose, and it spun. Everyone cheered. Let's see him read it. I mumbled under my breath. Mia heard me. Willson will probably teach him that next week. She laughed. Right hand read. Someone called out. Everyone dove for the mat. Willson got there first. Of course. Terminator spun. Left foot blew. Mia announced the next move. Only 2 moves and we were all a tangled mess. Wilson's position was secure. He's fast. He always finds the easiest spot to land on first. I'm not that fast. I had to stretch my left leg way back, over Ray's head, to reach a blue dot. I felt a sharp pain in my side. Please, don't let me fall, I prayed. Don't want to be the first one out. If I am, Willson will never let me forget it. My palms began to sweat. 3 kids had their legs draped over my right arm. I felt my hand slipping off the red dot. My elbow sagged. I tried to stiffen it, but it wouldn't stay. It slowly sagged some more. Willson craned his neck to see me. Jack's elbow is touching, he yelled. No, it isn't. Ethan came to my defense. Spin, Terminator. Terminator spun. Right foot yellow. 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 I searched frantically for a yellow circle. I spotted one. I hoisted my leg up and over Ray's back. And that's when I heard the re-up. My shorts split wide open. I froze. Superman boxers underneath. Cool. Willson hooted. Everyone laughed. I glanced over at Mia. She had her head tossed back, laughing like a maniac. My face burned red. I jumped up from the game, and staggered from the room. Wait, Jack. Mia chased after me. Don't go. No way I was going to stay. No way. I felt totally humiliated. Mia caught up to me and blocked the door. Please, she asked softly. Please stay. Could I say no? Of course not. Mrs. Montez gave me a pair of Mia's brother's shorts to wear, and I returned to the rec room. Everyone was seated at a long table, eating hot dogs. I had to take the only chair left, next to Willson. I lifted up my hot dog. I opened my mouth to take a bite. Whoa, wait a minute. Willson pushed my hand away from my mouth. You call that a hot dog? He held his hot dog next to mine. He had a foot-long hot dog, twice as big as my regular one. He threw back his head and howled. Then he gulped down his hot dog in 2 bites. He grinned that big, horrible, Willson grin. He was driving me crazy. A gross glob of mustard stuck to the corner of his mouth. I wanted to wipe it across his face. Should I do it? I asked myself. Should I give him a mustard bath? Before I could move, Mia announced it was time to open the presents. Willson jumped up and headed into the living room, where the presents sat, piled high. Everyone followed. Mia opened Kara's present first, a bunch of hair scrunchies with red hearts. Then she opened Ray and Ethan's present, a butterfly jigsaw puzzle, with over 1,000 pieces. Mia reached for my present next. I held my breath. She carefully untied the red ribbon. Then she ripped the paper open, and gasped. Oh, Jack, she exclaimed. How did you know I wanted this one? She held up my present for everyone to see. It's the new CD from my FA 4-ite group, Purple Rose. I knew she would love it. Thank you, Jack. She set my present down on a table beside her. She reached for the next one. An envelope, just an envelope. No gift. That's mine, Willson leaned over and whispered to me. I can't believe Willson only brought Mia a card, I thought as I watched her tear open the flap. Only a card for her birthday. What kind of present is that? Mia stared into the envelope for a moment. Then she screamed, oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow. She held up Willson's present. 2 tickets. 2 tickets to the Purple Rose concert at the Hollywood Bowl next month. Front row seats. Oh, wow, she shrieked again. This is totally awesome. Willson shot me his big Willson grin. I couldn't take it any longer. I let out a furious scream, and ran out of the house. I ran down the path from Mia's house as fast as I could. Ran down the dark road. A single street lamp cast a weak glow over the houses. Trees and shrubs poked over the path as if reaching for me. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. I just had to get away from the party. Stop, Jack, come back, I heard Mia call. I glanced back and saw Mia charging after me. Ray, Ethan, and Kara were chasing me too. I didn't slow down. I followed the winding path down the hill. I ran right past my house and kept on running. Jack, come back, Mia shouted. I shot another glance over my shoulder. They were catching up. I ran harder, past some darkened houses that were set back in the hill, hidden behind trees. I picked up speed as the road continued to curve downward, practically flying down now. My toes jammed against the front of my sneakers as I ran. I couldn't stop if I wanted to. I ran until the road leveled out at the bottom of the hill, where a fence stretched out for miles, separating the beach from the road. I darted across the road and charged through the fence. Jack, Jack. My friends' voices drifted down the hillside, over the steady roar of the ocean in front of me. I peered up and down the stretch of beach, staring at house after house. They sprawled out on the high part of the beachfront, with steps that led down to the sand. Lights from the houses washed over the sand, making the beach bright and silvery. No place to hide. No place. Suddenly, an idea flashed into my mind. The abandoned Dorsey house. I could hide there. The Dorsey house used to be one of the most beautiful beach houses in Malibu. But no one had lived in it in years. Just a big, old wreck. Now, a great place to hide. Jack, where are you? Mia's voice floated over the fence. Better hurry, before they catch up. I ran down the beach, past houses with swimming pools and tennis courts. I ran, and finally, I came to the Dorsey house. I stopped and stared at it. What a wreck. The wide, 2-story house once had a long awning that stretched all along the deck. But the awning had fallen from its poles. The torn canvas lay heaped on the deck, flapping in the ocean breeze. I stepped carefully. Several boards were missing from the deck. Others were cracked and broken. I leapt over a hole and made my way to the door. I turned the knob. The wooden door had swollen from the constant wetness. I had to ram my shoulder against it to get it to open. I ducked inside. Jack, where are you? Ray's voice rang out from the side of the house. I quietly closed the door behind me. An aroma of rotting wood and sour mold greeted me. I squinted in the darkness, trying to figure out what room I was in. I stood in an entranceway. Beyond it, in front of me, was a living room. 2 chairs with ripped seat cushions stood against one wall. The back wall of the room was completely made of glass. Outside I could see the dark ocean waves crashing against the shore. To the left was a kitchen. To the right, a long hall. That's where the bedrooms probably are, I thought, as I made my way slowly toward them, leaning one hand on the damp wall. Jock, Jock. My friend's shouts drifted through the closed windows. But they were fading now. Distant. I walked into a bedroom. Empty, except for a bare mattress on the floor that the Dorseys had left behind. Back in the hall, I groped the walls, trying to find my way in the dark. I stumbled forward, and tripped over something big. It landed on the floor with a loud crashle. I jumped back in fear. Then leaned over to see what it was. Just an old surfboard, I realized. I let out a long sigh. I moved back into the entranceway. Into the kitchen. The wooden floor creaked beneath my feet. A shaft of moonlight filtered in through the grimy windows. Some broken mugs lay on one of the counters. A child's sand pail and shovel rested in a corner on the floor. I stood in the shaft of moonlight. I could hear the ocean waves pound against the shore. The wind began to howl outside. It whipped through the weathered boards of the old house. The wood creaked and groaned. I peered out the kitchen window and saw the clump of fallen awning shivering in the wind, like a ghost getting ready to rise. Something scampered across my feet. I let out a startled cry. A mouse. A rat. Something bigger. My entire body shuddered. This place was really creepy at night. It's safe to leave now, I told myself. No more voices. They're gone. They're probably all back at Mia's, eating birthday cake. I bet Willson is on his third piece, I thought with disgust. I couldn't wait to get home, to my nice, dry house. I walked slowly through the darkened kitchen, across the sagging floor. The planks groaned with each step I took. The door came into view. I was almost there, almost out of this cold, creepy house. I took another step, and the floor broke away. The wooden planks crashed someplace below, as I plunged down into the gaping hole. My hands grabbed onto a jagged piece of floorboard. My legs dangled beneath me. Help! I screamed, but no one could hear me. I tried to pull myself up out of the hole. The wooden planks under my hands creaked. I struggled to hoist myself up. And then the planks splintered and broke. I dropped through the hole fast. Down. Straight down. I into an underground pit. No, into the basement. I landed hard on my hands and knees. Pain shot through my body, then quickly faded. Luckily, the floor was soft and spongy from all the dampness, so I wasn't really hurt. I took a deep breath, and choked on the bitter smell of mildew. Yuck. I could even taste it on my tongue. This was all Wilson's fault. Willson, always proving that he's the best. Never giving me a break. Okay. Forget about Willson, I told myself. Calm down. You have to find a way out of this disgusting basement. I stood up and searched for stairs, a door, a window. But I couldn't see a thing. Too dark, as if a heavy black blanket had been thrown over everything. My sneakers sank into the decaying floor as I made my way blindly through the room. My knee bumped into something. A chair. I reached down and ran my hands over it. Yes, a chair. Good. If there's a chair down here, maybe I can stand on it. Climb back up into the kitchen. Or climb out a basement window. I moved slowly through the room. I sloshed through a deep puddle. The cold water seeped through my sneakers. FM going to get you for this, Willson. I tripped over a table, and something crashed to the floor. I heard glass shatter, and then I heard a splash. My heart skipped a beat. Another animal. Another mouse or rat. I didn't want to think about it. My temples began to pound. How was I going to get out of here? Should I scream for help? Who would hear me down here? No one, that's who. On trembling legs, I moved through the room. Hands out in front of me. Groping in the dark, I stumbled into another table. I ran my hands over it. No, not a table. More like a bench. A workbench. My hands brushed across its top. I felt a hammer, a screwdriver, and a candle. My fingers scrambled over the workbench, searching for a match to light it. I groped my way across the entire workbench. No matches. I backed away from the bench, and my sneaker rolled over something round. Something round, like a flashlight. I picked it up. Yes, a flashlight. My fingers shook as I fumbled for the switch. Please work. Please work. Please work. I flicked it on. A pale yellow beam of light reached weakly into the gloom. The flashlight was dim, but I could see. TM out of here. I cheered. I swept the weak beam of light in front of me. I had fallen into a small room. Thick cobwebs draped the peeling walls. A rusty washing machine and clothes dryer sat in one corner. A small, wooden table and a smashed lamp lay on the floor in front of them. I moved the light closer, and saw a battered camp trunk. I ran my hand over the lid. Yuck. It was covered with a thick layer of damp, smelly mold. The trunk's rusted hinges creaked as I lifted the top. I pointed my flashlight beam inside. Nothing in there. Nothing but an old book. I read the title out loud, Flying Lessons. I flipped through the yellowed pages, searching for pictures of airplanes. I love airplanes, but there wasn't a single plane inside. The pages were filled with old-fashioned drawings of humans flying through the air. People of all ages, men with white beards, women in long dresses, children in funny, old clothing, all soaring through the sky. What a strange, old book. I flipped through more pages, until I heard another splash. I swept my flashlight over the floor, and gasped. Oh, no. A low wail escaped my HPS. I moved the pale light back and forth, hoping I wasn't seeing what I was seeing. But even in the dim light, I could see the dark bodies, the tiny eyes glowing red, the open-toothed jaws. Rats. Dozens of rats. Scuttling across the floor. Moving in on me. I leapt back. I gaped in horror as they closed in. Sharp toenails clicked against the floor. Scraggly tails swished through the filthy puddles as they scurried forward. A gray sea of rats. I froze in terror. I gripped the flashlight tightly to stop it from shaking. The rats snapped their jaws. They began to hiss. The ugly sound echoed off the damp walls of the small room. Dozens of tiny red eyes glowed up at me. The hissing grew louder, louder. Jaws snapped. Tails swished back and forth. The creatures scuttled over one another, eager to get to me. And then a big fat rat darted out to the front of the pack. It glared up at me hungrily with glowing red eyes. It bared sharp fangs. I tried to back away. But I hit the wall. Nowhere to run. The rat uttered a shrill cry. It pulled back on its hind legs, and sprang forward. No. I screamed and tried to dodge away. The rat clawed at the bottom of my shorts. It held on for a second, gnashing its teeth. Then it lost its hold and slid to the floor with a wet plop. Another rat leapt to attack. I thrashed my leg wildly, and kicked the rat across the room. Red eyes glowed up at me. The hissing grew to a shrill siren. I batted rats away with the old book. I swept my flashlight across the room, frantically searching for a way out. There. A narrow staircase across the room. I ran for it, stepping into the sea of rats. Stomping hard on them, flattening their scraggly tails. Claws scraped against my bare legs as I ran. 2 rats clung to my sneakers as I charged up the stairs. I kicked the rats off. Heard their bodies thumping wetly onto the floor. Then I staggered the rest of the way up. Hurtled to the door. And out into the fresh air. Gasping. My heart pounding. Sucking in breath after breath of the salty, ocean air. I ran all the way home. I didn't stop until I came to my house. Panting hard, I collapsed on the front lawn. I stared into the living room window. The lamps glowed through the sheer white drapes. I could see Mom and Dad inside. I started to go in, when I realized that I still clutched the book. Oh, I knew that Mom and Dad would be upset if they knew I took something that didn't belong to me. Worse than that, they'd start asking me 1,000 questions. Where did you get the book? What were you doing in that abandoned house? Why weren't you at the party? I can't let them see it, I decided. My wet sneakers squeaked across the lawn as I made my way around back to the garage. I stepped carefully inside. We have the most cluttered garage in town. My dad likes to collect things. Lots of things. We can't get our car inside the garage anymore. We can't even close the door. I made my way around a dentist's spit sink and the aluminum steps to Mrs. Green's old swimming pool. I hid the book inside a torn mattress, then went into the house. Jack, is that you? Mom called from the kitchen. Uh-huh, I answered, jogging upstairs before she saw me. I didn't want to explain my wet, muddy shorts. Shorts that weren't even mine. How was the party? Mom called. Okay, I called back. I left a little early. We'll be back tonight, Jack. Dad met me on the front lawn. It was the next morning, and Mom and Dad were getting ready to leave on an all-day trip. Dad patted me on the shoulder. This is going to be our lucky trip. The big one. The really big one. I can feel it. Dad is always saying that. He's a talent agent. But he doesn't have any really big acts. Nobody famous. Just a few actors with small parts. One plays a train conductor on a TV show. Every week he has the same line. All aboard. That's it. All aboard. Week after week. And he is Dad's most famous client. So Dad spends most of his time searching for the big one. The act that will become famous and make Dad a lot of money. Today Mom and Dad were driving to Anaheim to listen to a new musical group. I hope they aren't crazy, I said to Dad. Last week a real nut auditioned for Dad. She played a Beethoven symphony by banging on her head. After 2 notes, she knocked herself out, and Dad had to take her to the hospital. No, this group sent me a tape. Dad's eyes lit up, and they sound really great. Mom hurried out of the house and headed toward the car. Come on, Ted, she called to Dad. We don't want to be late. I left dinner in the fridge for you, Jack. See you later. Morty and I watched Mom and Dad drive off. We played catch with a frisbee, until the phone rang. It was Mia. I'm sorry I ruined your party, I stammered. No problem, she replied cheerfully. You didn't ruin my party at all. We all went back inside and had a great time. Oh, okay. So, what are you doing today? I asked. Want to go rollerblading? I love rollerblading. I can speed around sharp turns on 1 foot. And I skate faster than everyone in the whole neighborhood, including Willson. Sure, that's why I called, she exclaimed. Willson got these new blades. With balls underneath instead of wheels. They're much faster than the regular kind. Oh, I just remembered. I can't go skating, I told her. I have to stay home and water the plants. Mia hung up. I peeked out through the living room window. I watched Wilson's house across the street. Waited for Willson to leave, with his new, stupid inline skates. A few seconds later, he sped down his driveway and rolled down the block in a blur. I let out a long sigh and shuffled outside. Come on, Morty. I snatched the frisbee from the lawn. Catch, boy. I tossed the frisbee. Morty let it soar over his head. He didn't budge. Great. Now what? Hey, Morty, I know. Let's go find that big book I brought home. Morty followed me to the garage. I slipped my hands into the lumpy mattress and pulled it out. I lugged the book into the kitchen. I started to read it, and gasped in amazement. Morty, I don't believe this. IFT, wow. Morty, I can fly. Morty cocked his furry head at me. I know it sounds weird, boy. But it says so right here. I pointed to the page I was reading. Humans can fly. Wait a minute. Am I crazy? Have I totally lost it? People cannot fly. Morty jumped up on a kitchen chair. He stared down at the book. At a picture of a young girl. With arms stretched out to her sides, she sailed through the air, her long, blonde hair flowing behind her. Morty glanced up at me. Peered back down at the page. Then he whimpered and bolted from the room. Come back, Morty. Don't you want to learn to fly? I laughed. Morty, the first and only flying dog. I turned back to the book and read, for as long as humans have walked the earth, they have yearned to fly. To float like an angel. To glide like a bat. To soar like a mighty bird of prey. All a dream. A hopeless dream, until now. The ancient secret of human flight is a simple one. You need only 3 things: the daring to try, an imagination that soars, and a good mixing bowl. Hey. I stared at the page. I had those things. Maybe I should give it a try. I had nothing better to do today. I read on. There, on the next page, the book told exactly what you needed to do to fly. It gave some exercises to practice. And a magical mixture you had to eat. Learn the motion, eat the potion, that's what it said. Finally it gave an ancient chant to recite. And that was it. The secret of flying, right there. Yeah, right. I rolled my eyes. I scanned the list of ingredients I would need to make the potion. The main ingredient was yeast, because yeast rises. Yeast is rise. Maybe this really would work. Maybe I really could learn to fly. If I could, it would be awesome. I would soar through the sky, just like my superheroes. Could fly, I thought dreamily as I searched the pantry for the yeast. Something Willson couldn't do in a million years. And, boy, would Mia be impressed. I could hear her now. Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow, she would scream as I flew into the sky, leaving Willson down on the ground, like a bug. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to learn how to fly. Of course I knew it was crazy. But what if it worked? What if it really worked? I turned to the page with the exercises. Step 1, I read out loud. Hold your arms straight out in front of you. Bend your knees slightly. Now, take 50 little hops in this position. I did it. I felt like an idiot, but I did it. Step 2, sit on the floor. Place your left foot on your right shoulder. Then lift your right leg and tuck it behind your head. This was harder to do. A lot harder. I tugged my left foot up until it reached my shoulder. A sharp pain shot down my side. But I wasn't giving up. I lifted my right leg up to my chin, then I lost my balance and rolled onto my back. I tried it again. This time I rolled to the side. Learning to fly wasn't going to be as easy as I thought. I tried one more time, and got it. But now I was stuck, all twisted up. My left foot perched on my right shoulder, with my toes jammed in my ears. My other foot pressed against the back of my head, shoving my face into my chest. I struggled to untangle myself. I stopped struggling when I heard someone laugh, and realized I wasn't alone. "What are you doing? Ray, is that you?" I tried to look up, but I couldn't. My chin was slammed tight against my chest. "Yes, it's me. Ethan is here, too." "What are you doing?" he repeated. "He must be practicing for Twister," Ethan suggested. They both laughed. "Very funny, guys," I said. "Can you pull me apart? I think I'm stuck." Ray and Ethan untangled me. "Whoa, that feels better," I said, stretching out my arms and legs. "So, what were you doing?" Ethan asked the question this time. "Exercising," I mumbled. "I was exercising to, improve my tennis game." "Whoa, those were pretty weird exercises." Ethan's eyebrows arched way up. "He wasn't exercising for tennis," Ray exclaimed. "He doesn't even play tennis." "I'm thinking of taking it up," I said quickly. Ray narrowed his eyes at me. He didn't believe me, but he didn't ask any more questions. "Want to shoot some hoops in the playground?" Ethan asked. I didn't want to go anywhere. I wanted to stay home, alone, and see if I could fly. "No, I have to stay home with Morty," I lied. "He's not feeling well." Morty heard his name and charged full speed into the kitchen. He leapt on Ray and licked his face. "He looks okay to me," Ray said, narrowing his eyes at me again. "No problem. We can stay here," Ethan suggested. "Toss a football around or something." Ethan glanced around the kitchen. His eyes fell on the book. "No, sorry. I really can't hang out," I said, tossing the book in the trash can. "I have to clean up the kitchen." I turned to the counter and wiped it with a sponge. Then I began lining up the spices in the spice rack, labels facing out. And I have to stay inside anyway. To wait for Mom and Dad to call. "They're away. They said to sit by the phone." "Why?" Ethan asked. "What's so important?" "They wouldn't tell me. They said it's a surprise." I shrugged my shoulders. "Okay, see you later, maybe," Ray said. Both guys were shaking their heads as they left. I grabbed the book out of the garbage and flipped back to the exercise page. I read the flapping and leaping exercises next. I did them all. Now it was time to say the magic words. I read them to myself first, to make sure I got them right. Then I recited them out loud, slowly. Hishram Hishmar Shah Sharam Shorn. I climbed up on the kitchen chair, and jumped off. To see if I felt different. Lighter. Floaty. I landed with a hard thud. Guess I need to eat the special flying food for the full effect, I decided. I turned back to the book. It was time to start mixing. In a cabinet next to the refrigerator, I found our good mixing bowl. I dumped all the ingredients into it: 10 egg yolks, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, 2 cups of flour, 1/2 cup of seltzer, and 4 tablespoons of yeast. I stirred. A lumpy yellow blob of dough started to form. I turned the page to read the next step. "You are about to embark on the most glorious adventure in the history of time," I read out loud. "You alone will fly with the falcons. You alone will sail toward the sun. Are you ready?" I nodded yes. "You say, yes." I nodded yes again. "You are wrong. You are not ready. Turn the page." I turned the page, to the last page in the book. Empty 1/4 of contents of envelope into bowl. Mix well. Envelope. What envelope? The rest of the page was blank, except for a tiny spot of dried glue. I ran my finger over the glue spot. That's where the envelope had been. But where was it now? I shook the book frantically. Nothing fell out. "Oh, no," I groaned. "No envelope, no envelope. ... quote. Wait, I know." I ran over to the trash can. There it was. A small black envelope. It must have fallen out when I tossed the book into the trash. I opened it up, measured 1/4 of the bright blue powder inside, and dropped it into the bowl. I mixed well. The yellow blob of dough turned green. Then it began to grow and bubble. Small bubbles at first, popping lightly on the surface. Then larger ones, growing from deep inside the dough. Rising to the surface, bursting open with a loud plop. Plop, plop, plop. Yuck. I stood back. The dough began to throb, like a beating heart. I watched in horror as it started to gurgle. I gulped. What was in that envelope? Maybe it was some kind of poison. Forget about flying. No way am I eating this gross garbage. I decided. No way. I grabbed the sides of the bowl to dump the mixture into the trash. But I snatched my hands back when the dough flopped over, all by itself. It flopped again and again, each time making a sickening sucking sound. My stomach lurched. I reached out again, and the phone rang. We're on our way home, Jack. Dad was calling from the car. He sounded disappointed. So soon? I asked. What happened? The band members had a big fight. They called us in the car. They said don't bother coming to Anaheim. They broke up the act. I heard Dad sigh. Wow, Dad, I don't know what to say. Not to worry, Jack. I still feel lucky. Don't know why, but I do. The big one is coming. I can feel it. We're on the freeway. Should be home in half an hour, he said. Then he hung up. I better dump this stuff before they get back, I told myself. I turned to the kitchen table and shrieked in horror. Morty, no, what have you done? Morty, down, I screamed. Morty stood on the kitchen chair. His front paws rested on the table. His head dipped into the mixing bowl as he swallowed a big glob of green dough. No, Morty, down, I screamed again. Morty lifted his head. He licked his chops, then dove into the bowl for another bite. I sprang across the room. I peered down into the bowl. Oh, no, I howled. Almost half the dough was gone. Morty, what did you do? I pulled his head out of the bowl. Morty stared up at me, his eyes wide with guilt. His ears drooped low. He whimpered softly. Then he dipped his head back into the bowl for another bite. I scooped him off the chair, carried him into the living room, and gasped as he floated up out of my hands. I stared in disbelief as Morty floated through the room, back into the kitchen. Morty, you're flying, I cried. It worked. I couldn't believe it. My Cocker Spaniel was flying. I followed him, in a daze. Followed him as he floated over the kitchen table. Watched in amazement as he flew out the open window. Morty, I cried, jolted back to reality. Wait. Morty let out a sharp yelp, then sailed up into the sky. I ran outside, and gazed up. Morty soared above the house, floating higher and higher. Morty, no, Morty, I screamed. Morty, come back. His legs thrashed as he floated over the treetops. He started barking, shrill, sharp yelps of terror. Morty, I watched him sail up, his body rocked by the wind, his legs scrambling as if trying to grab hold of something. Oh, no, I wailed, staring helplessly. I've got to get him back. I've got to rescue Morty. But how? I knew how. I knew how to rescue my dog. And I knew I had no choice. I ran into the house. I plunged my hand into the bowl, grabbed up a big chunk of the disgusting mixture. Yuck, I can't eat this. It feels so slimy. You have to eat it, I ordered myself. You have to save Morty. It's the only way. The dough throbbed and gurgled in my palm. A thin mist of steam rose up from my fingers. Oh, I groaned as I shoved a fistful of the stuff into my mouth. I clutched my throat. I started to gag. It tasted sour and hot. It scorched my tongue. I choked it down, and grabbed up another glob. Shoved it into my mouth. Swallowed hard. My mouth and tongue swelled. Swelled with the horrible, bitter taste. I shoved in another handful. I had to make sure I could fly like Morty. I could feel the mixture throbbing as it slid down my throat. Gagging, I ran back outside. I gazed up into the sky. Morty flew high over the trees. His cries drifted down to the ground. I could see his legs still flailing wildly as he floated higher and higher. He looked so small up there. Just a dark speck in the sky now. I'm coming, Morty. I cupped my hands around my mouth and yelled. Don't worry, boy. I'll save you. I raised my arms up to the sky. I will fly. I cried out. Fly. I took a strong leap. Nothing happened. Speed. That's it. I need to build up speed. I ran around my backyard. I circled it 3 times. Faster and faster. My sneakers ripped the grass. I ran hard as I could. Sweat poured down my face. I'm ready. I'm definitely ready now, I thought, gasping for air. I raised my arms over my head. I leapt high. And came down. Nothing. I don't get it. I wailed. Why can't I? I know. The exercises. The hopping exercises. That must be it. I stretched my arms straight in front of me. Then I took off, hopping around the backyard on both feet at super warp speed. Hop, 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 hop. I hopped around the backyard like a crazed bunny. This is it. I'm ready. I know it, I thought, hopping frantically. Morty, I'm coming. Still hopping, I bent my knees to lower myself. Still hopping, I lifted my arms up over my head. Then, with one mighty hop, I launched myself off the ground. And came back down. What's wrong? I struggled to breathe. Why can't I fly like Morty? Morty. I gazed up. Morty drifted in front of a cloud, a tiny black speck now. Ooh, Morty, come back, I cried, and a horrible taste flooded my mouth. The bitter taste of the dough. I could feel it throbbing in my stomach. Churning. I could hear it gurgling in there. Bubbling up through my chest, into my throat, into my mouth. I burped, and took off. My feet blasted off the ground, and I shot high into the air. I was flying. I can't believe it. I'm flying. I'm really flying. Like a superhero. Woo-ah. I thrashed my arms and legs wildly. I rose up and up, out of control. I floated over my house. Over the trees. Over the hills of Malibu. I could see the blue ocean, sparkling far below. Morty continued to sail up and away from me. Morty, FM coming. I shouted. I kept my eyes locked on Morty. I tried to aim my body in his direction. Woo-ah. I did a somersault in the air. I whirled over and stopped, with my head pointed down and my feet sticking up. The wind pulled me higher. I couldn't flip around. My feet were still straight up. All the blood was rushing down to my head. I floated higher, up through a cloud. I gasped for air. I struggled to turn. Suddenly, I felt faint. Superheroes don't fly feet first. I scolded myself. Do something. I brought my knees to my chest, and my body spun around. It worked. I was right side up. But now Morty was behind me. I twisted in the air, struggling to turn, struggling to catch sight of him. Yes, I could see Morty, floating even higher. I floated up, toward him. Closer, closer. Hold on, Morty, I called. TM almost there. I felt a rush of wind in my face. 2 robins soared past, swooping out of my path. I peered down. My house and garage looked like toys, so tiny. Wilson's house looked even smaller than mine. I was flying. I couldn't believe it. I was really, really flying. I floated up, close to Morty. He stared at me, whimpering, his whole body trembling as he floated. Hold on, boy. I stretched out my hands. But I couldn't reach him. I floated closer. I tried to pick up speed, but I didn't know how. All I could do was float on the air currents. Float in the direction they carried me. I grabbed for the dog again. Missed. He floated 2 or 3 feet from my grasp. I'm going to lose Morty forever, I thought. A stiff breeze picked me up. I shot ahead on it. But so did Morty. I could hear his terrified whimpers as he floated up toward the blazing sun. I floated closer, closer. I stretched out my hands again. I could almost touch him now. Almost. It was so hot up here. I felt as if I were burning up. And poor Morty. His little body heaved in the heat. His head drooped limply. His tongue sagged out. He wasn't going to make it. I floated closer. I reached out again, and got him. I pulled Morty into my arms. His entire body shook. I held him snugly against my chest, and gazed down as I floated higher. 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 Oh, no. A terrifying thought suddenly gripped me. VM just going to keep floating higher. And higher. I don't know how to get down. I drifted higher. My temples pounded. The world beneath me began to shrink, smaller and smaller. I could barely make out my house now. It looked as if it could fit in the palm of my hand. In the distance, the ocean stretched like a blue carpet. The beach was a slender yellow ribbon. I felt dizzy, sick. Morty gazed down and whimpered. It's okay, boy, I told him. We're going home now. But how? How? I shifted Morty into one arm. I stretched out my other arm. Pointed it to my right. I swerved to the right. Hey, not bad. I pointed to my left, and flew to the left. This was great. I pointed my arm down. Hoa! I started to dive. I brought my arm up quickly, and soared straight ahead. If I held my feet tightly together, I picked up speed. When I separated them slightly, I slowed down. Awesome. I sailed through the sky. I floated, glided, drifted, soared. I even flew on my back. I let the breeze gently lift me up. Then I lowered my arm and swooped down, then up again. I gazed at the hills below. At the houses that nested in them. The houses seemed to dot the hills in a perfect pattern, right down to the beachfront. I could see Mrs. Green's pool, the size of a postage stamp from up here. A sparkling blue postage stamp. And the ocean, I flew low over the waves, holding Morty tightly, feeling the cold, refreshing spray on my face. Then I soared back up to the hills. Funny, I thought. Gazing at the world from way up here should seem scary. But it isn't scary at all. In fact, it feels safer. Calmer. Not as confusing as when you're in it, down below. I held my feet tightly together and soared over my school. Hey, Morty, look who's on the playground. There's Ray and Ethan, shooting baskets. I swooped low behind some treetops, then flew toward home. I didn't want Ray and Ethan to see me. I didn't want to show them that I could fly, not yet. I wanted to show Mia first. Mia, wait till she sees this, I thought, soaring higher. And wait till Willson sees me fly. Ha, this will shut him up, forever. I floated through the air, dreaming about all the things I would do, now that I could fly. I gazed down at my house. And saw our car roll up the driveway. Oh no, Morty, Mom and Dad are home. Did they see me? If they did, I was doomed. They would think it was way too dangerous up here. They would never let me fly. Please, please, don't let them see me. I prayed. Hey, look up there. I heard Dad cry. I swooped down behind the garage. I placed Morty gently on the ground. What did you see? I heard Mom ask Dad. A bird on the garage roof, Dad replied. I thought it was a condor. They're so rare, Mom commented, slamming the car door. Phew, I breathed a sigh of relief. They hadn't seen me. Hey, I gasped when I realized that Morty had started to rise up again. Down, boy, down, I cried. I tied the end of his leash to a small rock. He took a few wobbly steps. He didn't have any trouble walking with the rock. And it was just the right size to keep him grounded. He headed straight for his doghouse. I charged into the kitchen. What a mess. Powdery trails of yeast and flour stained the kitchen floor. Cracked eggshells sat in a slimy puddle of yolk on the table. And globs of the horrible green dough stuck to the kitchen chairs, the counters, everywhere. I could hear Mom and Dad unlocking the front door. No time to clean up. I tucked the small black envelope into the flying book. And I ran out the back door with the book. I tore out to the garage and slid the book back into the folds of the old mattress. Jack.